We start with a professional hitman named Bang, who's fighting two gang members, but the guy is so skilled that even unarmed he manages to defeat both of them. Then Bang's wife sends him a message asking if the girl is okay, and you might be wondering who this girl is, so let's go back a few days so I can explain better. Bang was chilling at home when his wife, named Hyan, arrives and says she has to go on a business trip with her best friend, Sua. But there's a small problem. Sua has a daughter who is underage and can't stay home alone, so Hyan asks Bang to do some babysitting while the two of them are away. The guy isn't happy and asks if the girl doesn't have a father, but Hyun replies that the girl hasn't seen her dad since the divorce. Then she adds that the girl will have to stay at their house since hers is under renovation, and Bang gets even more frustrated hearing that, but decides to accept it since it's important to his wife. The next day he takes Hyan and her friend to the airport, says goodbye to his wife, and later goes to pick up the girl who's leaving school. So Yoonji gets in the car and makes him give a ride to her friend too, which makes Bang start thinking how annoying teenagers can be. As they get closer to the destination, Yoonji makes up a story about wanting to spend a few days at her friend's house and asks Bang to keep it a secret. Obviously, the guy agrees with a smile on his face. After all, he's not in the mood to play super nanny, so he takes the girl's wallet and gives her some money so she won't go hungry. He also tells her to take care of herself and not do anything reckless, as if that advice would actually make a difference. With that, the two girls get out of the car and the guy goes home to get some sleep. Later, the girl calls Bang at 3 in the morning. She's clearly scared and says her stomach hurts, so the guy gets in his car again and drives to where she is. But when he gets there, he sees the girl is fine and that she's out with some flashy guy. Then the girl introduces the young man and says he's her school supervisor. She also asks Bang to give him a ride, but the young man declines and leaves the two of them alone. Bang then confronts the girl for lying about staying at her friend's house, but Yoonji ignores his questions and keeps messing with her phone. This makes the man annoyed, so he gets back in his car to leave, but he sees in the rearview mirror that the girl is getting on the back of that guy's motorcycle, the same guy who's supposedly her school supervisor. Still, Bang is fed up and decides to let the girl do whatever she wants. But suddenly, Bang's wife sends a message asking how the girl is doing, and because of that, the guy has to turn the car around. Then he starts tracking the girl using a device he had secretly placed in her wallet when he gave her the money. Arriving at the location, we see that the flashy guy took Yoonji and her friend to a skating rink where a criminal named Yeon is operating. She uses attractive young men to lure teenage girls so she can force them into spending time with wealthy men in exchange for money. However, Yoonji refuses to go along with it and starts standing up to Yeon, who considers slapping the girl to silence her, but Bang shows up just in time and stops it. Then the flashy guy pulls a knife to attack him, but Bang easily defends himself and takes down the other young men too. However, Yeon takes advantage of his distraction and stabs him from behind. Still, the guy is tough and doesn't even show pain. He takes Yeon down right after. The next day, we see that Bang needed some stitches, and if I were him, I'd ground that girl until she turns 30. Then Yoonji shows up again to bother the guy, asking what kind of job he has, since Bang clearly lives above average. But the man lies, saying he works managing construction projects for a wealthy client, obviously to avoid revealing that he's a professional assassin. At night, the two go out to get something to eat, and on the way back, they pass by the skating rink and notice the place is full of police officers, which doesn't make much sense since Bang didn't take anyone out permanently. He just knocked the guys out for a few minutes. However, a police officer named Lee stops their car in a routine check, and Bang asks what happened there. The officer says that some teenagers were found dead, so the guy acts normal so the officer doesn't get suspicious. But Yoon looks visibly upset, which makes Lee a bit suspicious. Still, he lets the car go. Back at home, Bang and Yoon research the case and are surprised to find out that the 5 boys who were killed were the same delinquents who had messed with them. The next day, the detective shows up at Bang's house and reveals that a security camera recorded Bang's car passing near the crime scene about 30 minutes before the incident happened, which makes things look worse for Bang. However, Bang tries to say it was just a coincidence, so the detective shows him footage of Yoon riding on the back of one of the victim's motorcycles. But the image is quite blurry because the bikes were going at high speed, so the detective can't legally confirm that it was Yoon. Therefore, Bang asks Detective Lee to only come back when he has solid evidence. The officer leaves, but it's clear he'll keep investigating until he finds the truth. After that, Bang notices the girl is feeling really down and tells her she's not to blame for what happened. Yoon then says she's afraid she might be the next victim, which triggers an old memory in Bang from a time when he met a girl who was about to jump off a building, but Bang didn't ask her any questions. He just calmly approached and hugged her, which actually worked because the girl eventually fell asleep. Back in the present, Yeon calls Yoon, and Bang grabs the phone from her hand. The criminal then says she has Bang's fingerprints since he touched a knife during the fight and left it behind at the skating rink. Yeon also reveals that she has the girl's wallet, so she threatens to turn both items over to the police if Bang doesn't show up at the designated location within 1 hour. So the man grabs a few items from his weapons case, and Yoon says she wants to go with him, but he gives her a bracelet with a tracker and tells her to stay home. As we've seen, Bang is a highly skilled professional assassin known throughout the criminal underworld, and Yeon didn't know this when she tried to threaten him. Because of that, Bang is able to track the criminal's hideout using the tracking device still hidden in Yoon's wallet. Bang gets on his motorcycle to catch Yeon by surprise, and the tracker leads him to an apartment where he meets a guy named Jang, Yeon's cousin, who happens to be one of the people behind the whole disturbing operation of exploiting young girls. Jang calls in a huge bodyguard to handle the intruder, but Bang is a combat veteran and easily defeats the big guy. After that, he demands the knife that still has his fingerprints on it. But Yeon and her cousin refuse to hand it over, so to get what he wants, Bang starts cutting the bodyguard using broken glass bottles and even a blade. Yeon and Jang actually show concern for the man and throw the knife over to Bang. When Bang bends down to grab it, Jang tries to take advantage and pulls a revolver. However, Bang quickly throws another blade he was holding and hides to avoid the shots. He then starts chasing the criminals, but they shut off the lights, causing Bang to lose sight of them. Another attacker strikes from the shadows, launching sharp projectiles at him, but Bang is sharp and uses his phone to block one of the projectiles. He then tracks the attacker by the sound of his footsteps and leaves him injured on the ground after a short fight. Afterward, Bang returns home only to find that Yoon has been kidnapped. There are multiple shoe prints on the apartment floor, a clear sign of a break-in. So the man grabs a pistol and locates her, since Yoon is still wearing the bracelet with the tracker. Upon arriving at the location, Bang smashes the window of a criminal's car just to make them open the door. Then he hears female screams and makes his way to a room where two men were assaulting Yoon's friend. After knocking the guys out, the assassin asks the girl where Yoon is, but gets no response. Yeon soon realizes Bang has arrived and tries to escape down the stairs, but Bang catches her just in time. Yeon reveals that she was wearing the tracker bracelet and says Yoon will be killed if anything happens to her, but Bang isn't intimidated. He ties up the criminal to get more information. Yeon then reveals how the whole operation works. The scheme involves recruiting young girls to seduce adult men. The criminals work in partnership with corrupt police officers, which keeps the entire network under the radar. Worse yet, the girls are also trafficked abroad to places like Russia and Africa, treated like disposable merchandise. Still, Yeon refuses to disclose Yoon's location, so Bang stabs her in the leg and threatens to cut an artery. The woman, now crying, finally gives up the hotel address where Yoon is being held. She also mentions someone named Runji, who is the mastermind behind it all. Bang spares her life and rushes out to save Yoon before she gets shipped off to Russia. Meanwhile, neighbors call the police, and Detective Lee enters the house, finding Yeon injured. Meanwhile, Bang arrives at the hotel and begins taking down several gang members. He's such a skilled assassin that even alone, he handles the entire gang without breaking a sweat. He then executes a few survivors trying to get information on Yoon's whereabouts. That doesn't work. That's when a man named Yuri shows up and claims he's the only one left who knows the answer. Bang analyzes the knife the man is holding and realizes that Yuri once belonged to the Russian Special Forces. Yuri then says that Yoon will be taken to Russia on a ship departing at 8 a.m. and he reveals this because he's confident Bang won't make it out alive. However, the assassin decides to avoid a direct confrontation and runs off to try and rescue the girl in time as daylight is already breaking. Yuri starts chasing him and the two assassins exchange a few blows. But Bang, being more clever, ties a rope around Yuri and uses him as a counterweight to jump out the window without taking any serious damage. Detective Lee arrives just in time and accuses Bang of killing Yeon, but Bang stays calm and manages to unnerve the detective using only his words. This causes Lee to make a rookie mistake, and Bang disarms him. The assassin then handcuffs the detective and the two head by car to the port where Yoon is. Upon arrival, Bang sees the girl is about to be loaded into a shipping container, so he crashes into the criminal's vehicle to stop it. Next, he enters the vehicle, eliminates the thugs, and rescues Yoon. But Jang shows up right after and rams his car into them, knocking both to the ground. Bang recovers quickly. Since Yang's car was wrecked in the crash, he tries to flee on foot. However, the assassin corners him and demands to know who Runji is. Jang refuses to rat out his boss, so he is executed. After that, Bang takes the criminal's phone and finds Lee's number in the contact list, proving the detective is one of the corrupt cops. Authorities begin arriving at the port, and Bang threatens Lee, saying he'll keep quiet if the detective helps him. With no other choice, Lee lies to the authorities, saying that the assassin is just an ordinary civilian who got injured amidst all the chaos. Thanks to that, Bang manages to walk away without being arrested and is taken to the hospital. 2 days later, he reunites with Yoon, who's also under medical care. But soon he tells her he's heading back to his room and warns that the police will come question her soon. However, Yoon asks Bang to stay with her. She's still shaken and deeply upset by everything that happened. Later on, the assassin has a private conversation with Lee and reveals that he accidentally saw Yeon's body in the detective's trunk. That's how he figured out that Lee was a dirty cop. Lee had killed Yeon and kept the body, planning to use it later to blackmail Bang. So now Bang demands that the detective dig deeper into this man called Runji, the one behind the entire human trafficking operation. Lee is terrified of getting involved with the Russian mafia, but he has no choice. Bang now has enough evidence to destroy his career. A few days later, Bang meets up with his old partner Hyunju, who retired after a leg injury and now deals illegal firearms. Bang says he needs to buy a sniper rifle with a suppressor. Hyunju is surprised to see Bang back in action, but the assassin explains that it's just a small problem he needs to handle. Later, Bang has a brief phone call with his wife, who's on a trip with her friend Sua. She tells him she'll be back home in a week. After that, the hitman gets a call from the detective informing him that he found out a guy named Park is responsible for sending young women to Russia. Lee also gives him the name of the hotel where this guy is staying. Later, Park finds out the heat is on and grabs a suitcase full of money to get out of there. But it's already too late, and Bang finds him and takes down both of his bodyguards. Hitman points the gun at him and asks who's running the operation. Park, scared for his life, tells everything, revealing that the gang leader is a woman known as Pig Mama and that their main clients are not just nobodies, but wealthy men and important politicians. Park also reveals that Runji is a nickname used by a famous minister of justice named Kim, who obviously can't use his real name in the criminal underworld. Kim is also involved in the scheme, and they use the old method of luring young women by promising easy money, only to trap them later in an endless cycle. So Bang decides to take Park out and then calls an underground cleanup crew who arrive at the hotel to collect the bodies and wipe the crime scene. The next day, the hitman meets with Hyun, who begins unpacking the sniper rifle, showing that it came disassembled inside food packaging to avoid detection by the police. With the weapon assembled, the hitman starts training to make sure he doesn't fail when the time comes. Later, he goes back to the hospital and sees that Yoonji is devastated because her friend chose to take her own life, traumatized after suffering so much at the hands of the criminals. The hitman then calls Lee, since he had asked the detective to look into Yoonji's background. Lee informs him that Sua is actually the girl's stepmother, not her biological mother, as both of her real parents had passed away a long time ago. Lee also explains that Kim is a highly influential politician, and for that reason, it will be hard for Bang to bring him to justice. But as we know, the hitman doesn't deal in arrests, he deals in burials, so Lee gives him the address of Kim's mansion. Later, the hitman positions himself near the mansion and uses the rifle to eliminate the main guards. Then he enters the place and starts taking everyone out with a silenced pistol. Then Yuri realizes that the guards aren't responding to radio calls and decides to check it out. When he arrives, the two hitmen begin exchanging gunfire, but soon Lee shows up and Bang thinks the guy came to help him. However, Lee turns on the hitman the moment he lets his guard down. As a result, Bang is taken to Kim, who is standing next to a teenage girl who clearly looks uncomfortable. Lee reveals that he's no longer afraid of Bang's threats, since Kim has promised to use his political power to keep the corrupt cop out of prison. The hitman hitman is then taken outside to be executed, but he uses the door to disarm Lee and throws the detective onto a small table. Bang grabs the broken pieces of the table and begins fighting off the guards. After knocking all the men out, Bang approaches Lee and tells him he allowed himself to be captured just to see Kim's face. Without a hint of mercy, he then takes out the detective and the guards with a weapon. But soon Yuri arrives, and the two start exchanging gunfire again. The battle quickly turns into a hand-to-hand fight, as Yuri is also a professional killer and gives Bang a hard time. However, Yuri gets hit on the head with a few bottles and becomes dizzy. He rushes to grab his gun from the floor and fires at Bang, but the pistol is out of bullets. This gives the hitman the chance to grab his own weapon and finish the job. Meanwhile, Kim is taking a shower and has no idea that all his men have been taken down. Then Kim steps out of the bathroom and comes face to face with Bang, who warns him right away that no one is coming to save him. The politician even notices that he left his gun on the table, but he knows that even armed, he wouldn't stand a chance against the hitman. So Kim tries to make a deal, saying he'll use his political influence to protect Bang from any criminal charges, but the hitman is already retired, so he refuses the deal and asks where Pig Mama is. Surprisingly, Kim reveals that Pig Mama is actually Sua, who didn't hesitate to sell her own stepdaughter just to make money from it, so the hitman takes out Kim without hesitation, since he already got the information he wanted. Later, Sua says goodbye to Bang's wife and gets into her car. She receives a phone call and thinks it's her brother Kim, but it's actually Bang using Kim's phone. Sua is startled to see that the hitman was sitting in the back seat the whole time. He asks why she got close to his wife, and Sua explains that she knew Bang was wealthy and that her original plan was to use Yoonji to seduce him. She thought Bang was just another unfaithful and shady man. Yoonji didn't know anything, but her stepmother had planned everything, even starting a home renovation to force the girl to live with Bang. So Bang tells Sua to drive to a quiet area and finishes her off there, leaving the body for the cleanup crew to handle. Later, his wife is at the beach and he brings Yoonji to her, showing that he kept his promise to take care of the girl. In the end, Hyun hugs her husband and he instantly remembers the moment. He saved her from jumping off a building, revealing that the mysterious woman in his memory was Hyun all along.